Ooh, you grew up. Ooh, you grew
Hold
up.
on a second. Mask got me. Mask holding me back.
Like Big Step
Ooh,
said,
you
get it
grew
that shit.
up.
Unstoppable flows.
So, man, it's good to see you again, brother.
Good to see you, big bro. Yeah, man.
You came out of thin air and let me know about maybe a week ago that there was some kind of major event going on with the Last Poets,
Yeah.
and it was branded kind of strangely. And I don't mean that in any sort of slight, but I was just like, "What is this? Is this synchronous or asynchronous?" And I believe it referred to the hip hop museum,
Yeah.
which I'm assuming is the one in the Bronx. I'm not even saying the name right. Didn't do a lot of
Universal,
Yeah,
Universal Hip
Universal
Hop.
Hip Hop Museum. And I didn't do a lot of prep to watch it, but I knew it was worth watching based on the names I saw and based on the fact that you put, the bat signal out for it.
Mm.
And whew, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. And it was not a major this was a 50-year anniversary for the Last Poets first album. We both have some personal and cultural, history and significance with the Last Poets, obviously. Um, I don't know if we want to start personal, but I think normally we're responding to events in this type of chat. So I wanted to know, what were some of your main takeaways? Like, what are the things that you won't forget about what happened tonight for what, about 3 hours straight?
Yeah, man.
3 hours, Last Poet's 50th anniversary. What's sitting with you right now?
Man. Um, Let me say first about the Universal Hip Hop Museum
Mm,
is taking donations. They are building the museum, they are curating the museum, and they don't do it without the support of the public. So that's a note to self also
mm,
that after enjoying something that beautiful and that relevant, that we have to remember that it took time, it took money, it took resources to get that done, and they're just trying to make sure that history remembers this culture in all of its beauty. So just want to put that out there first, man. But standing out to me, just my biggest takeaway is the all the people that came through to pay homage, to say thank you, to gift, song, rhythm, harmony, um, speech, essay, poem. Like the writers and the artists, the Africans stood up, to pay homage to the elders. And what stood out to me was the fact that we have these versus battles going on, 600,000, 700,000 people, and the people that you're watching do the verses are the types of people who literally are showing up to tell the Last Poets, you're the reason I do this, So it's like how and why a group of so much impact and influence is not a household name for us, for us they are, should I say? But I mean, just as a culture, I don't think that hip hop is perhaps not doing the best job. I
mm,
know Ralph McDaniel is standing on principle with the Universal Hip Hop Museum with these type of events. He's always been a voice of the culture in that way, and there are many others. They came through and paid homage, But just as a culture in general, we have to do better with giving our. Who you just told me? Who said that? Drink champs. Like the fact that we want to make sure our legends know how great they are, give them their roses, give them their
yeah.
flowers. Rhapsody she had a big campaign with that one time too. Looking at her in the background, but let's give our elders their roses, but also, man, let's sit in their classrooms. That's
Mm,
the other big thing that stood out to me. Like the whole session those brothers were giving you their stories, they were
Mhm.
giving you their art, but they were also giving you their lessons.
Mhm.
Lessons, you dig? So that's what stood out.
Yeah, yeah. You brought to mind Rakim talking real specific about what he learned from them.
Mm.
You know, and when you say household name, I jump back 20 years where the last poets came to Austin and they stayed at my crib,
Mhm.
slept on the floor. Like I remember what position they slept in. Like Abiodun slept on his left side,
Mm.
rolled a mean Philly back in the day,
Mhm.
you know? And so when they were talking about that influence and when they were paying homage, I related directly to it.
Mm.
And this was another one of those moments where you transcend pop culture and a mainstream presence or genre or even the dominance that's happening now, and you get back to that root of community,
Mhm.
and you get back to that root of art, and you get back to that root of these timeless, eternally excellent people
Mm.
that produce this in the face of a situation like what we're dealing with right now. But in this case, there's the story of hip hop culture, and there's the story of, DJs in Jamaica, and there's a story of, you know, just African presence all over the world.
Mhm.
And I could feel all of that happening in these conversations and tributes that were happening.
Yeah.
So one big takeaway was that your place in a context or in a culture is your place, and that's not something somebody outside of you can really define for you.
Mm. Thanks.
And I just reflected on the ability to kind of just tune out some of what folks be talking about, because we know what we know.
Mhm.
And I felt a strong sense of that. And then to your point about Drink Champs, I definitely had a strong Drink Champs thing in my mind. Noriega is the host, one of the hosts of Drink Champs. We had the same birthday and everything. And
No.
he says we give them their flowers while they can smell them, their trees while they can inhale them, their drinks while they can drink them, their thoughts while they can think them, something like that. To
Mm.
salute our legends, 10 years or longer in the game. And it was a salute. And normally when you see tributes, like I think a Hip Hop Honors is a very popular tribute platform, or Drink Champs. But
Yeah.
normally you see a window that maybe begins with like a Rakim or, Jazzo or somebody, and ends with like, Rakim Myers, ASAP Rocky, or A Boogie with a hoodie, or somebody like,
Yeah.
Griselda or something, but that's the whole frame. And this one took it so much further. The drum was taking you to Africa,
Right.
and the last poets were taking you to kind of the pre-era of hip hop records. And we know people were rapping before, the published birth of hip hop in the Bronx and all that stuff. Like it existed a long time.
Right.
There were white rappers before the 70s,
Yeah.
but just to see that lineage and that intergenerational positioning, man, always gets me so excited. And so there was that. I just felt like sort of blocking out the noise. It felt focused. I felt like I was one of the people who understood the language and significance of what was going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, what you thinking?
Now, just how much stronger we would be as a people, man, if that was our norm.
Hmm.
What and why they recorded that album 50 years ago, if that was still our what and our why, how much stronger, how much mightier we would be. But we have allowed our own self-doubt, our own self-hate to mingle with the oppression of the oppressor, and to just strip. It's just we every year, every 5, 10 years, we're just stripping away the best parts of why we and what and the why. You know, um, I think about stuff like that all the time. Like Last Poets, Gil Scott Heron, Frankie Beverly and Maze, Earth, Wind and Fire, they wouldn't get a record deal right now.
No.
They wouldn't be able to find a record deal right now, boo. You know, and that's a problem, and that's a problem that as a community we have to resolve and we have to fix. You know, and I don't know, I don't have the answers for it. I just know that it's very crucial to the success, mental, emotional, and spiritual health of our kids, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, and they talked about all of that in that 3-hour frame, man. They talked about, you know, how these OGs and pre-OGs should relate to today's folks and handle them with grace and listen and not be fearful of them. You know, there was so many jewels in there. And then there was some of the standout guests, man. I got excited when Battle Cat dropped by. I was blown away by what he had to say and what he had prepared. And KRS-One, you know, what he had to say and what he prepared. And Chubb Rock ends up being this esteemed guest. You know, he's sitting side by side with Rakim. Yeah. Rakim has less to say, but beautiful things to say nonetheless. I feel like I grew up with, you know, Last Poets vinyl right there in my house, but I never really got that deep into their catalog. So I also just want to go back and listen to every single little thing, because I'm realizing, you know, I was able to rub shoulders with these guys and host these guys, and now I see the people who, you know, really shaped me artistically and culturally in many ways. Like Chuck D was in that thing for a while, you know.
For a while, man.
Chuck D and Davy D, and, you know, it's not the names, but the fact that they're paying earnest tribute. And part of me wonders, you know, how much of that has to do with this, you know, Zoom era and the quarantine and the stay at home. How much of that is in play here? Because this museum just rolled themselves out with a bang. Like, my eyes are on them now. That was a very impressive way to introduce yourself.
Yeah, and
how much of that has to do with this current reality to you?
To your point, and I'm gonna answer that too. But to your point, I think they should continue to celebrate these albums that are 40 or more years old. Like you said, we have the platforms for 30 years up. Where's 35? Where's 40? Where's 45? Where's 50? Let's salute these projects. Let's get the artists that were influenced to get on the video or the call and talk about it, man. But you're right. When Erykah Badu popped up on there in her home studio doing, I want to say it was a song from New America Part 1, I want to say, maybe. Master Teacher, that's what it was, which was so appropriate. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right. Birth of the woke.
Man, look, she said, y'all woke us up, and then she went into the jam. But my point with bringing her up is that we had just watched her verses on her 2 weeks ago, which stood out to me as a training that we're going through right now. Like, not intentionally, I don't think, but Swiss Beats, Timbaland, a lot of the hip hop platforms are training us to bring virtual conversations into our lives and to embrace them. You know, like, we don't have to wait for these complex.com to do an interview anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, we get straight to it. We cut the middleman out. And so now we're getting all this content straight from the culture and from the artists. That's the main thing. Like, this is a controlled product.
Yeah, and to interject, that's Nori's big push as well. Is that Drink Champs is like inside the NBA because Shaq and Kenny and them play the game.
Exactly,
so brother.
Exactly, and he gets pissed off when people go to other platforms, and when he's like, you know, we're over here and what we doing. You know, it's like Jay-Z said on 444. He said, "Man, I'll be damned if I drink Belvedere when Puff got Ciroc." What's wrong with y'all? But that's the point, man. I just think that we're I was tuned into it, which caused me to help tune other people into it, because I feel like we're in a routine now of what webinar is coming up, what Zoom thing is going down, what tribute is going down virtually, and we're okay with that. Now, there was a time when that was almost like it would be a waste of our time to be engaged in such activities when I have so much stuff to do. You know what I'm saying? And now it's what we do. So I think it's going to connect us, man. I think it has a great potential to, like you said, connect generations. Mm-hmm. Because now we can get a younger artist on a Zoom with an artist that influenced them, and that person that influenced them to say, but guess what? Here's who influenced me. Let's all talk about this. You know, because you could go from somebody who says, oh, you know, a younger guy, man, I love Wayne. Wayne say, bro, Jay-Z made me step my game up. You know, Jay-Z said, Jazzo is the one that put me down with this. Jazzo said, oh man, Melly Mel was the one that just had us all going back to the drawing board. Melly Mel says, oh, the Last Poets showed me how to take that talk from the street and put it with some drums and put it on a record. And that made me want to like be a performer. You know, you get the kid who loves Wayne on this type of platform with Wayne and Wayne's influence and Jay's influence and Jazzo's and you get all that into one conversation and all those eyes on the screen at one time. We talking about something that's as big as verses, right? But just so important to how we heal our community. Because like I said, this is all about the how, the what, and the why. Like why, what they said on that album 50 years ago and why they said it. If that was still our what and our why, then we would be in a strong place.
So healing the community, right? And a big part of that is just having a purpose for existing. And a lot of the healing of the Last Poets as a gift to the hip hop generation is piecing yourself together in the face of a social, political, historical context that says you're not allowed to have your original name, culture, language, religion, family structure, your way of life. You are property, and so you don't get all of that other stuff. And with that comes the erasure of your history and your identity. And one of the strongest points I heard tonight was somebody was talking about the fact that you should be able to bring your history with you. Nobody should be able to tell you that you are old school or irrelevant or you should leave something in the past. Your history should travel with you. And any indigenous or African, for that matter, I don't even know, that's potato, but if you look into cultures and you talk about oral traditions being passed on and storytelling and the importance of history and writing it or drawing it or just memorizing it and telling it, I love the reclaiming of that and how that theme was really rising up throughout the hours that I was connecting with this. I mean, I was washing dishes and doing all kind of stuff, but right there in my ear, it was strong. And that was one of the strongest points I heard was, and I think it was Chubb Rock of all people, right? Talking about, and Rakim's on the call at the same time, but Chubb Rock is dropping all the jewels for the most part. And he's saying, I have a right to bring my history. I don't even know if Chubb Rock, but I know he's on there when they said it.
Yeah.
I have the right to bring my history with me. Man, that line kind of set me free a little bit. Like a lot of this experience tonight, I just felt liberated. To sit where I sit, to be who I be. And part of this Zoom and online and where there's joy if you can afford the joy at home, and there's uncertainty in the world at the same time right now.
Yeah.
People are choosing to claim what's joyful for them. And that's going back to your point about these different options and the ways that people are making connections and I don't know, just getting real again, like beyond commercial reality. It's not all about the dollars. There's just a lot of truth telling and storytelling that's rising up and what appears to be a certain level of authenticity through this whole virtual connection stuff that's happening.
Yeah, man. One of the elders, I can't remember which member of the group said it, but he said this is a prime time for introspection. You know, so I think the event was a retrospective that caused a whole lot of introspection, you know. So play with that, you did. So yeah, man, just I'm glad you tuned in. I'm glad we had a chance to kind of like process a little bit. I'm sure we'll keep coming back to the jewels that they dropped tonight. And I need to order me some Last Poets vinyl. I know it's out there somewhere. So I'm gonna order me some vinyl. So, you know, I just personally, I know you said we're gonna start personal. I think maybe we end personal. You know, I know you talked about them touring and being there on the floor. I remember seeing the brothers the Elders on tour when I was touring more with poetry. So Ebony Square, historic open mic spot in New Orleans, and I remember seeing Last Poets there. And I want to say I saw them in, I don't know if it was Texas or if it was Baton Rouge or if it was like Dallas or Houston or something like that. But I know I saw them a couple of times. And both times that I saw them, the venues were very intimate. Like, I'm not even talking about a theater. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about like a lounge. And they filled that room with talent that could entertain an arena, you know, but it's their livelihood. They on the road paying bills, sharing their art, of course, and keeping the legacy going. I think it was at a time when you could catch a Last Poets tour with 2 members over here and 1 over there. It was during that time. Like, and I don't know if this has anything to do with disagreement or if it just, we got to go get as much booking as we can. I don't know, but I do know that seeing them after knowing of their work, like just their name, when you start writing poetry and you start getting into the spoken word world and that whole culture, soon as you hear about a group called the Last Poets, it's like you said, it's liberating when you realize that this traces back to 1970 and beyond. And then when you put it on and you hear that loud nigga, like, you like, whoa, in the 70s, they were talking like this, being real like this, being raw like this. Mm-hmm. Oh, I got a license to ill now. Like, it was the passport, man. It was, yeah, Last Poets and Gil, man. Once you heard what they were doing way back then, anything you had in your little books, you had to kind of rip up and kind of figure out, okay, if that was going on then, and our job is to keep pushing this forward, they always set the bar. You know, they are the bar, you know, and just personally for me, their music, their recordings, their jazz, that's the thing. They're a jazz group, man. So their jazz influenced my taste in music and influenced my approach to writing. And I want to say, Balau, the words that he said probably would be what I leave with. The advice that he got from the Last Poets that he still follows today. When you make your music, make sure you cut and heal in the songs that you make. So when you're writing a song, be sure to cut and be sure to heal. And hip hop has become and had become a whole lot of cutting. You know, and not as much of the healing to go with that. You need the cut because you want the message is the cut. The revolution is the cut. But then you got to heal. You got to get us up off the ground so we can go ahead and push forward with the work. I thought that was great advice. And Balau, artist that I love, you know what I'm saying, who I think is just masterful in what he does.
Yeah.
When he said that, I said, you know what? He does kind of get that cut and that heal when he does this stuff, you know? So he revealed that he got that advice from the Last Poets, man. So that's my personal takeaways and my personal thoughts on what we saw tonight.
Well, thank you. One thing that comes back to mind is we were talking about Janelle Monáe and Gary Clark Jr. and the Roots and just this concept that sometimes you can be so singular that people just know you have your place and it transcends and supersedes any notion of the sales you need
Yeah.
or any other paradigm you will be judged by. And there's just a principle of that right there is important. That right there is dope. And now we get to look at one of kind of, at least within this hip hop context, this hip hop story, at one of the first and last examples of exactly that. I guess I got to dedicate a sweeper to the last poets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, you grew up. Ooh, you grew up.
See y'all soon.
Ooh.